This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're taking a look at the arms of the Mando as we break down some of the weapons from the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
So you might be wondering why we're suddenly looking at a cartoon.
I remember something about this happening, but I haven't seen it.
Upon researching this episode, the rifle that's sort of iconic to the Mandalorian, a version of it actually appears first in this, an animated section from the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special.
Totally blanked on this as well, or forgot about it. We're a Nambu Type 14 there, or Nanbu as I'm told we should pronounce it.
Isn't that the planet where Jar Jar Binks is from?
Really?
I'm not proud of that one. Don't worry.
Our Patreon has the extended edition of this episode, and by joining today you get 1 week early access to next week's 007 Nightfire episode. Link in the description to find those, but without further ado, it's over to Jonathan.
Yeah, I was very pleased that they chose this. It's very in keeping with the Star Wars aesthetic. I've noticed a trend of people saying that Star Wars guns are all World War II. I know that's just shorthand. They're not. So this is obviously well pre that. This is fairly minimalist for a Star Wars blaster, but that muzzle device is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Of course, they don't need to disguise the Bergman because very few people knew what the hell it was. It's also a good choice in retrospect, because I hadn't really thought about this, but the hammer on it is very reminiscent of the C96s. So if you don't know these guns, you might look at that part and go, but let's say you're a prop builder or just an enthusiast of props, you'll look at that and go, oh, that's like the DL44 hammer. Well, that's because they're from the same time period and the same part of the world. But it looks great. The curves on there, I think, give it a spacey feel, if that makes sense. They've broken up the outline enough that it doesn't look like an old-timey gun, just with that muzzle device, really. There's not much change apart from that. Few detail pieces. I haven't done a deep dive ever into his blaster, actually, to my shame. Like real granular detail of where are all these parts from. If they are found objects, they might well not be in this era. Because although they're evoking the original trilogy era, where it was all bits they found, or model kits and parts and stuff, they're free to design and 3D print and whatever, their own greeblies. Now, of course, they're not using, I was hoping at the time, please don't use a real Bergman 1894 for this. They're obviously not using that. They've taken the design, presumably 3D modeled it and 3D printed one as a basis to at least develop it. They could have gone much more on the nose for the blaster pistol, couldn't they? They could have gone for something that looks more like a revolver. But I think that the magazine housing on the Bergman gives you enough of that silhouette to feel a bit revolvery without being one. Because I think a space revolver would look a bit silly, potentially.
Yeah. I think the Bergman, with its thinner profile as well, suits the aesthetic of the Mando armor.
Yeah, it means he doesn't have a great big gun hanging off his thigh.
And that the way he holds it as well evokes sort of revolvers, Wild West cinema as well.
They haven't fallen as far as even with the likes of the Death Troopers, they haven't really fallen into the John Wick tactical movement stuff. They've kept it pretty faithful to how guns were depicted in the original movies. I do like this scene. I do always enjoy a good excessively armed chap scene.
I remember watching this for the first time, and I was watching it with a friend of mine, and I had to do the annoying thing where I paused it and went back, because I was like, Is that a Liberator? They had no idea what I was talking about.
Yep. So he's got his Bergman, he's got his, I forget what they call those little micro missiles, but he's ejected those. He's got his rounds, and then he's got his holdout pistol, which is, as you rightly point out, a Liberator with very minor changes. So what have they done to the Liberator? Well, if I hold that up like that, you can readily see not a great deal. So we do have what looks like it might be an original feature on the real gun is not here. There's some sort of fake bolt head or device on the side, and then notably 3 grooves on the body there. They have actually cut off the bottom of the grip. I never noticed this first time. So the bottom of the real gun is just a storage plate, and there's space for a few rounds in there because it's single shot. For those of you who don't know, striker on the back, pull, rotate, lift up the gate, load a single round, 45 ACP, close it up, put the striker back into position, held on the sear now, so slight gap, and then pulling the trigger, pulls it back slightly, and then drops it. Awful trigger, but not too heavy. It's a desperation weapon, or a weapon to allow you to capture something better. But what they've done here, hopefully not to a real Liberator, because as crappy as these are in principle, they're important historic artifacts. They've chopped off the grip there, so they've made a tiny gun even tinier. And somehow that does change the look of it. Like, it's hard to get around this trigger guard front sight assembly. That really does scream Liberator, but only if you know the Liberator. This feels like an Easter egg. The Bergman is, we want that gun as the basis because it's cool and fits the aesthetic. The Liberator, it feels like they've gone, the nerds will get this. and the people that don't will think, oh, it's a cool little Star Wars, very compact pistol. They might even think of the Men in Black noisy cricket and think, oh, I bet it's super powerful as well. But yeah, the real thing, sheet metal, tack welded together. It's not great. More of a psychological weapon, as it's often said, than an effective real one. But hey, for one shot, it would do the job.
So you might be wondering why we're suddenly looking at a cartoon.
I remember something about this happening, but I haven't seen it.
Upon researching this episode, the rifle that's sort of iconic to the Mandalorian, a version of it actually appears first in this. An animated section from the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special is the first appearance of the Ambran sniper rifle, or a model of blaster that is very similar.
That's why I remember the look of this. I was thinking, oh, did someone make like a tribute Mandalorian Holiday Special style segment? Of course, it's actually from the Holiday Special. I've tried very hard to not actually watch that, so I've only ever seen snippets.
There's obviously a lot of differences, but even the shape of the stock and the forks, like two prongs, they're switched from the horizontal to the vertical plane. But I have to imagine that was the starting point of what became the Mando Ambran rifle.
I think that's fair. Yeah. It's not just fair. It's definitely the case. Like a long gun of a Star Wars vibe with a double prong muzzle. Yeah, got to be. That's really interesting.
Not many breech loading Star Wars weapons.
No, there aren't. And it was very cool on camera though. Like that idea of limited ammunition that's super powerful worked really well.
Powerful enough to just atomize Jawas.
Yeah. I was familiar enough with the expanded universe to know that there were such weapons, so it didn't feel too jarring when it showed up in this. Yeah, I love the whole suite of weapons they came up for. Again, it's almost like this is like a Sharps rifle, like a Buffalo rifle or something. If his Bergman is reminiscent of an Old West revolver and of course a late 1900s semi-automatic pistol, because that's what it is, then this is kind of reminiscent of those single shots you see in, I don't know, like Quigley Down Under or something. Not obviously Western American, but...
Because that offset scope is very evocative of that era of rifles as well, isn't it?
That too, yeah. We have 3 rifles with Davidson optics on them. And one of them, you can actually see the reticle. We'll get that out for a video one day. And they're offset because they're stuck to the side of something that was never designed to accept an optical sight.
And it makes sense for this because if it wasn't offset, the emitter of the Ambran rifle would block the scope.
Yep, in this case, it's more like offset sights on a Bren gun than the original reason for offset optics on legacy rifles, which is that they weren't designed for them.
We dive even deeper into the weapons of the Mandalorian over in our Patreon exclusive extended edition. Becoming a patron comes with perks such as 1 week early access to videos, Discord access, and we now have over 85 Patreon exclusive Director's Cut episodes and a bunch more bonus content. Either way, whether you join the Patreon or watch along here on YouTube, I want to say thank you for your support, and now I'll get back to the video.
Now I do remember this, the double Bren gun. this is another like knocked it out the park Star Wars gun, because it's the correct era, but it's super disguised because these are Mark 1 Bren gun barrels with the full length and that integrated flash eliminator sleeve essentially at the front end of the barrel. That's not blued, so we can see that right away. The grip, she's grasping in a reverse grip there, almost like it's designed for that. That is the handle for removing the barrel if you're using it in a fixed position, fixed lines or defensive use generally. The Bren gun barrel wasn't swapped in what we think of as normal infantry fighting. It was, if you're on the offense, you don't take the spare barrel. Here, we've got a spare barrel kind of permanently attached. The gas regulators are kind of welded together with some plates to sort of cover those up. I think we've just got we've got the receiver, or some semblance of the receiver intact. Yeah, I might need a better look at that. And then we've got the MG34 drum on there as well. So an interesting mashup of two different guns. At least two different guns. There might be more, actually. Got a sling on there, probably because it needs it, even though it might not be made of real steel. I think it's got a fairly distinctive sound as well.
It's got to be a challenge to find so many distinct blaster sounds, because there's a few recognizable ones in there. They're like, I've definitely heard that before in a movie, or even the animated stuff. But you can't have every blaster sound the same, especially when the difference between a blaster pistol and a heavy repeating blaster. They've got to sound punchier.
It looks like they've CGI'd multiple blaster bolts as well, so they haven't forgotten that it's supposed to be double barreled, which is something that could have happened. Anti-aircraft. So that I didn't finish my thought, did I? So the Bren gun barrel handle, you could lock that in a position to use as essentially a side grip for anti-aircraft use. So the gun would be on a mount, but you would be stabilizing it using what's normally the handle for three purposes. One, for removing the barrel without burning your hands off. Two, for picking up and running with the gun, a carry handle. And thirdly, as a sort of, an anti-aircraft handle, which kind of is how, it's anti-TIE fighter. TIE fighter's a bit like an aircraft. Functions as an aircraft as well as a spacecraft. I do like us smacking the butt on the ground to get this thing working again. Another really nice character and gun combo where you get the sense that they've got history. But I guess it's a Millennium Falcon reference to smacking the console to get that working. But it's part of the whole lived-in tech thing, isn't it? Ah, okay. This I don't remember. You mentioned an SVD, and I was thinking, why? Why is there an SVD? Very disguised, I would say.
I didn't recognize this as an SVD when I watched the show. This is not Space AK. This is not Space SVD. But the more you look at it, you can see that, somewhere in there is a airsoft Dragunov.
Yeah, presumably. Or even a solid cast, I would guess. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? They didn't need to do this at all. They could have come up with basically the same design without any of the visible gun bits that the likes of you or me might go, it's one of them. But they don't need to do it for budgetary reasons anymore. They don't actually, sadly, need to do it for blank firing reasons either. They're doing it because it's the design language of Star Wars. It's bits that look like they could be real gun mixed with bits that are kind of unidentifiable or futuristic or whatever. And again, it's another great design. It's got its own kind of look to it, being quite black and futuristic looking. I'm not entirely sold on the optic, which looks to be like is that a real thermal or IR sight with a red dot on top? Cast of one or something, and there's a bit of Picatinny visible there. I don't want Picatinny on my Star Wars guns, but apart from that, I think it's really good. It looks like it's made by a different in-universe manufacturer from anything else that we've seen so far. You can just about make out. So, SVD, sans scope. Actually, I could have picked one up with a scope. The dead giveaway, if you're looking at this and going, what are they talking about? Well, the safety is probably the dead giveaway. Now, it's built into this gun in a way that it probably couldn't operate because there's a fake sort of handguard thing going on under here. The magazine is absent. And so they couldn't have used this as a basis for a blank firing setup realistically because there'd be no magazine. So there we go. It's already looking more like this blaster. They've cut the barrel right down, but you can make out the gas block. This is a short stroke piston system. It's not an AK, and you can make out the shape of the gas block there. But it's not what they tend not to do, which is good, is cut stuff off or remove stuff and leave stuff just kind of hanging in space. Like, well, what does that bit do? They tend to, if they remove something, they compensate for it elsewhere. So they've chopped the muzzle down, but they've added their own Star Wars-y looking muzzle device, and then some kind of cladding, a shroud of almost looks like old school vac form plastic, which somehow works. And of course the bolt, we've got the bolt and the top cover are in evidence there as well. But only kind of 3 major visible, I guess the takedown lever at the back is under her thumb there. So there are a few points of comparison. The stock I think is new, but I can't really see it at the moment. In a way, the way she's using it is almost kind of SVD appropriate in that it's an accurate rifle at distance, but you can fire semi-automatically at closer distances. It's a DMR, not a sniper rifle, although it's called a sniper rifle. She's not using the red dot though, you'll notice. Totally blanked on this as well, or forgot about it. We've got a Nambu Type 14 there, or Nanbu as I'm told we should pronounce it. Hello, Matthias.
Isn't that the planet where Jar Jar Binks is from?
Really?
I'm not proud of that one. Don't worry.
So yeah, another good choice. This one really is World War II vintage.
Also obscure enough that it's fairly easily disguised with the greeblies and other bits and bobs. Like we talk about World War II weapons, you couldn't do this to a 1911 and have the same effect or get away with it.
No, although we had the Space Luger in Rogue
That's
One.
true, and I do quite like the Space Luger, but it's much more obviously a Luger. But is that because the Luger's a bit more famous than the Nambu?
See, to be fair, I think people bought the Space Luger but didn't buy the Space AK. And actually, I think they've done the same job on them. Like, they changed a lot about that Luger to not look like a Luger anymore. In detail, but it still has the silhouette. But people were happy with that because it was from the World Wars period. The AK, if you look at it in detail, really quite substantially changed. They have done the Star Wars thing to it. Not so much the glue a few greeblies on. They've done the other approach, more like what we just saw with the SVD. Or the STG or AR-based rifles, the A280 and whatever, where they're changing much more of the gun, covering up much more of the gun. They did that to the AK, if you look at it in detail, but it's just too iconic in people's minds and too modern, I think, for them to accept it. The Nambu has none of those problems. As you say, most people probably wouldn't know what it was, or if they recognize it, they wouldn't specifically know much about it. They've done the thing of an optic, putting an optic on there, really changing the outline, brings it in line with other stuff. They didn't do that with Mando's pistol, interestingly. Didn't need to, I think, because it was so unusual. This is one that I have picked up for you. I think it's the long-barreled version with the barrel trimmed down. There is a shorter-barreled version that looks too short to be this. Having said that, they have got a sort of... There's a fair underrib, if you like, that they've added to this with a muzzle device that sticks out on the front. So it's possible they've actually gone with a shorter-barreled gun and built it back up. A little bit hard to tell. But anyway, this gives you a better impression of what it is you're looking at. And it is the 1894 model German flare pistol. The trigger guard spur is actually the brake mechanism or latch for the brake open mechanism, and it is a 27mm flare with a manually cocked single action hammer. None of that's relevant, of course, for a blaster, but my god, is that the heaviest single action trigger pull I think I've ever experienced. And some stuff stuck to it in traditional fashion. Dinky little optic on top. Makes for a really cool looking blaster pistol. This is really good nick, actually. Really good condition. Blued finish, walnut stocks. It's almost too nice for a flare pistol. Yeah, now the more I look at it, the more I think that actually is a short-barreled one that they have added to, because the apparent caliber of the muzzle is way smaller than 27mm. It's more like 45 or less. And they've achieved that by sticking the block on the front with a smaller barrel attached to it, I think, unless it's some weird perspective trick. Makes for a big imposing pistol, regardless of the host barrel length. Okay, another SVD. No, it's... Oh, what's that? What is that? It's an AK. It's an AK.
I think it's a PP-19.
I think you're right. Yes, based on the
Just
length
because you
of the
can see
receiver.
Yeah.
No, good call. For a moment, I thought we had a precursor to Space AK. Or actually, would it be? Yeah, precursor. And it's very AK adjacent in terms of design, albeit it's a blowback pistol caliber submachine gun. The bolt/ejection port would be the giveaway. And yeah, it's all a lot shorter than it would be if it was a 7.62 or 5.45 AK. Just got a bit carried away when I saw an AK-esque top cover and selector. Now that's see, there we go again. It's not World War II. It's not even Cold War. It's 2000s or late 90s, perhaps in design terms, and does have a bit of Picatinny on it as well. There's enough going on there that I'm not too concerned about that. But again, yeah, interesting note, because a lot of people looking at that would have had the same reaction I did of, oh, AK. Well, it's not an AK, but it's close enough that I'm surprised people didn't complain about that. Oh, yeah, I glossed over this one completely. So our heavy Mandalorian blaster here, what's better than 2 barrels? 3 barrels. And it is clearly a scratch build, but it is heavily referencing actually 2 different guns. So it has MG34 barrels, or MG34-esque barrels. I mean, they're pretty close actually to MG34 barrels. I don't know why I'm staring at it. I have one here. Very heavy. So barrels from an MG34, or 3D printed or resin casts thereof. Lighting isn't great, but you get the gist. You see the the rings on there, the supports. No bipod, obviously. But then there are strong cues in the middle section, middle to rear. Most of the back half is more referencing the MG42. We have the vertical charging handle rather than the horizontal one on the 34. We have what looks like a nod to the rivet patterns on the 42, and we have a version of the barrel latch, that's how you remove the barrel on the MG42. Clearly couldn't work here. They've just used it as a visual interest thing. And then there's a big boxy thing going on with the receiver that isn't on either gun. Yeah, of course, because it's energy that's being fed to the gun. It has a flamethrower-esque hose, unless that's for something else. No, it is attached to the gun. It's like the original Iron Man, not Iron Man, but it's called Iron Man, AR-10 ammo backpack, the Predator minigun backpack. It's a nod to that, but because they don't need to make it rectangular section to convey rounds, it looks more like a flamethrower, especially with the ventilated barrel support of the MG34 barrels. So you get the sort of aesthetic of a flamethrower with the action of a machine gun, basically, a backpack-fed machine gun. And again, another distinctive sound. Yeah, that's a nice tie-up with our game commentary, isn't it? And quite frankly, real guns. Because if you were caning a machine gun as much as he effectively has in this fight, it might not completely melt down like you see there, but I've seen footage of gun barrels glowing bright red and bullets passing through the soft steel because they're so hot. They'll catch fire, the steel will actually burn if it's hot enough. So you get melting, drooping, and even potentially burning. Although by that point, you wouldn't be able to hold it anymore. But yeah, really, really nice dramatic way to show that this thing is absolutely... Like, he's kind of implies his ammo supply is near infinite. He does actually go, ow, my hand.
We don't often see reloads in Star Wars. We saw unless it's like a slug gun.
No, that's right. I mean, the fans rationalised the magazine on the E11 as a power pack. They've never shown that being swapped, as far as I know. They're functionally unlimited ammo. You don't see them run out of ammo unless it's some exotic specific thing like the Ambran rifle or a cycler rifle or whatever.
So when I was researching this, I believe the blaster that Boba Fett uses in Book of Boba is based on the Sedgley Mark V signal pistol, which I can only imagine is maybe like an Easter egg, harking back to the Webley and Scott flare gun that Boba Fett also has, both being flare guns.
It would be a bit meta if so. They're both flare guns. That's about it. But yeah, So I would think we have one of these, but I've never looked at one. They have put the hinge, because it's a tip down barrel, as they often are with flare pistols. The hinge point is there, and I would have guessed probably that was Greeblies, but it's not. They have stuck a smaller barrel in the front of the big barrel, and they've connected it up with a tube along the top as well, and then another tube, sort of implying almost an optic. Yeah, interesting, because if you look at the Sedgley, so it's the Mark V US Navy flare pistol, if you look at that, it's very clean and 50s looking, very, very futuristic looking, I should say. You could have just dropped that straight in as a Star Wars gun, albeit original trilogy era, not this. So they've done a lot of work to it. But yeah, I didn't pick up on that originally, I don't think. I would have just
Apparently
assumed...
you have one.
You're checking the catalogue.
Yeah.
Whistling birds are a powerful defense against multiple enemies.
Do you think they did that shot by poking them all out with a stick and then reversing the footage?
They do look annoying to reload.
Oh yeah. Dark Forces style. Dark Troopers. It's just funny how easy it typically is to snap off a robot's head in media. I think they'd be a bit tougher than that. They're intriguing, these whistling bird missile things. They're so small and yet have a huge effect. But they need reloading, whereas the blasters never seem to need reloading. But I guess that's why they've made them incredibly effective. Like, they all seek to a target, they all kill outright with every hit.
Yeah, I prefer the idea that they were almost like armor-piercing flechettes rather than an explosive thing. Keep the explosive munitions for Boba Fett's chunky wrist or knee launcher.
I tend to agree there, but it's fine. The wrist flamethrower, of course, is something we see from Boba Fett originally, but does not get used against humanoids, does it? Because it's a family show.
Well, the effect it has on like stormtroopers it's more like a distraction rather than engulfing them. But then you also see them melting the droids.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that they won't. It's not like the A-team. They don't not use them against people, but they don't depict the effect as it probably would be. Whereas the droids, they can kind of go to town and show it getting sort of melted. Droids in Star Wars get a very rough deal.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you tell us what the games, movies, TV shows or beyond you would like to see us cover. Like the video if you enjoyed, and of course, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to all of our wonderful EXP patrons for supporting the channel and for allowing us to do this content week after week. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will also be in the description below, so make sure you check those out. But until next episode, I want to say thank you again for watching, and I will see you very soon.